Let me ask you a question. How did your first anime make you feel? It can be a bit of a difficult question to answer, I know, but it's an answer that I think we all at some point need to find. Did you enjoy your first anime? Did you get excited while watching it? Did that eventually lead into hours and hours of watching other shows, attempting to recapture that same kind of excitement? Or was it just the beginning that led to experiences far greater? I have been watching anime for a long time, and it wasn't until I reached high school that I was even able to fully understand what anime was. In high school, anime was the cool thing. It was this different kind of entertainment that was unique from other cartoons and live action shows that I would watch. I would get enamored with the story, the characters, and the artwork. I would listen to the music for hours on end, making AMVs in my free time. I would spend all of my spare money on DVDs that would one day fill my shelf. But even high school happened long after my first anime. My first was watched when I was barely out of kindergarten. It is a series that I have a great amount of nostalgia and respect for, because it is my belief that it helped to not only shape my tastes in anime, but also myself as a person. So today, in what is going to be my 200th review, I wanted to take some time to talk about my first anime. So, ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and today, on Glass Reflection, Bishoujo Senshi Sailor Moon. Let's jam. If you have somehow been living under a rock and have never heard the name Sailor Moon mentioned before, well, I would honestly want to know how you managed such a feat. Not only talking about the show's impact in Japan, its influence here in the West during the 90s is nothing to scoff at, so to have never heard of it before, that would be an achievement. But if that is indeed the case, allow me to quickly summarize what Sailor Moon is about. Sailor Moon is the story of a 14-year-old girl named Usagi. One day, after saving a cat in a parking lot, the cat A reveals that she can talk, and B grants Usagi the power to turn into the pretty soldier, Sailor Moon, to fight for love and justice against the evil Dark Kingdom and its monsters. Over the course of 46 episodes in its first of 5 seasons, Usagi soon finds others with similar powers who team up together as the Sailor Scouts to save the world. I find it hard to talk about how good the series is because of its age. The show started to air in Japan in early 1992. Its first episodes were playing on Japanese televisions before I even celebrated my 2nd birthday. So I would not be wrong in saying the series is good, but I can also point and compare everything it does to modern day, and if I wanted to explain why the series is crap, I could. So actually, no, let's do that. Let's be evil for a moment and explain why Sailor Moon is a crap show. First off, it is a repetitive, formulaic Monster of the Week show. Almost every episode of the original Sailor Moon fits into a formula that gets repeated ad nauseum for 40 plus episodes. So here is how almost every episode of the show plays out. First, usually the episode starts with the current evil general of that arc explaining to someone, usually their queen, of how they have this new plan that will not fail to bring energy to the Dark Kingdom or defeat Sailor Moon once and for all. Usagi then gets a minor scene with one or more of the scouts talking about some new store or service that recently opened in town that everybody is talking about and going to. Feel free to replace the scouts with Usagi's 2 classmates, Naru and Umino, at this point, if the scouts haven't been introduced yet. Usagi then ends up meeting a character for the episode, usually someone she needs to protect, or who will very soon reveal themselves to be a monster under the employ of the arc's evil general. The monster then, using the previously mentioned commercial enterprise, begins to steal energy from the local populace, usually at the exact same time that Usagi or the scouts are conveniently in the building. Usagi turns into Sailor Moon, involving a long transformation sequence that is the same every single episode to save on animation costs, and she is promptly attacked senselessly with no defense because she is terrible at her job. Then, one or more of the scouts, or more often than not the mysterious Tuxedo Mask, appears to save her ass, though honestly most of the time he just acts as a distraction without actually doing anything meaningful. With the monster distracted, Usagi uses Moon Tiara action and/or Moon Healing escalation to defeat the monster. The evil general then threatens that they will defeat the scouts next time, before leaving dramatically. Everyone then has a brief reflection on the events of the episode, ending off with Usagi having a comedic and klutzy moment. Episode ends, rinse, repeat. So much of this show is tirelessly predictable. Some might find it mindlessly boring, and it also doesn't help that the villains are some of the most incompetent idiots to ever attempt to take over the world. It takes far too long for the villains to ever acknowledge the scouts as a legitimate threat, and even longer for them to be able to see through their Clark Kent disguises to find out who they are. Even worse is how none of them ever bother cooperating with one another for the net gain of them all. I realize that a lot of what happens here happens because otherwise there would be no show, especially not one of this length. But there are times that I just have to laugh at the predictability of it all. However, it is not all bad. In fact, I would argue that it has quite a few good points. Many it still holds over more recent adaptations of the original manga. The manga, and then later the adaptation Sailor Moon Crystal, are quite short. First time I ever read the manga, and yes, I actually did read this one. I was seriously surprised at just how quickly I was able to breeze through the initial seasons of content of what was the original show. Like, people complain nowadays about filler episodes in anime, even entire filler arcs, but Sailor Moon could quite possibly be considered one of the most outrageous. See this? These are 3 volumes of manga that comprise the majority of the show's first season, and things in this 4th manga aren't covered until episode 60 and beyond. 60 episodes! Only 3 volumes of manga. That's an insane amount of filler, but I'd like to say that it's a necessary one. And this is where I get to compare my thoughts of the original series with Crystal, because I feel that Crystal did little justice to the characters of the series. It did justice to the manga, sure, but with just 3 volumes of manga, it's really hard to get a sense for who all these characters are, which is why I love the filler of Sailor Moon. Usually, I would say that most filler episodes of anime don't serve much purpose besides delaying things to give the mangaka more time to work. But here, the filler in Sailor Moon gives us a real chance to see a build-up of the stakes in the story, to slowly adapt to the introduction of its 6 main characters. Heck, even then, Venus takes forever to get her own episode, and when she shows up, it's just like she's just kind of there, not like she's really a part of anything, like she doesn't exist. That is a talking around for another time. The characters themselves are just phenomenal, or at least they feel it because of how relatable they are. Or rather, they were not relatable as a whole, but anyone could watch the series and relate heavily to at least one of the Sailor Scouts, who usually ends up being your favorite. This is where I could go into a big long rant about the 4 temperaments, but you know, Cracked did a video on that relating to the Ninja Turtles, and they did the topic far better justice than I could, so check on that when you have the time. If you strip all of that extra time away, everything just feels rushed, and you don't get a chance to be attached to the characters as much. Or, you know, that could just be the nostalgia talking. Though it's not nostalgia to say how enjoyable it is to watch this series. Sure, it can be predictable at times. Well, alright, a lot of the time. The repeated formula will do that. But this story about a young girl who is not even close to a perfect hero was and is both refreshing and inspiring. Usagi is a klutz. She's a scatterbrain. By all accounts, she should not be the one with the fate of the world on her shoulders. But she is a character who is able to persevere and save the day regardless. The rest of the scouts have reasons why you might relate towards them. Ami's intellect, Rei's passion, Makoto's strength, Minako's empathy, but Usagi is this careful mix of these things in exactly the right way, while also making her very close in characterization to the average viewer. Usagi is not someone who is able to do everything because she is the main character, like some shows. She can be selfish, she can be cruel, but she can also be loving, caring, and protective, which makes this story about her all the better. But enough of that. To the animation! Oh lordy, how much I have missed cel-shaded animation. Not that I have anything against modern digital stuff, there's just something so pleasant though about the animation from this era. But it's not without its hiccups. Being a series that had to run on and on every week for several years, there's nothing too spectacular about the show's animation. even for its time. The high points, of course, would inevitably be the parts that you see the most often. The intros, the transformations, the attacks. These are all the highlights, and they are most definitely top tier for the era. Beyond that, though, there are very few times that the animation becomes one of the show's main points. The music, though, is... well, I wouldn't say that it's good, necessarily, but it's catchy. It's good in the same way that pop songs are good. A part of you hates it for how formulaic it is, but every time you turn around, it's like stuck in your head on repeat and it won't freaking go away. As far as voice acting goes, I don't have much to say on the Japanese side of things, but there is a bit that we can speak on with the English, mostly because there are 2 English dubs and it's fun to compare. The problem, though, with comparing the original DiC dub to the more recent Viz dub is that they are technically 2 separate shows. The DiC dub comes from a time when it was commonplace for North American adaptations to be edited for content, and sometimes have whole episodes, plot lines, and even character backstories just flat out removed for one reason or another. The most blatant example of this is prominent in the dub with General Zoisite. Zoisite's character designs and mannerisms come off as very feminine. However, in both the manga and the Japanese dub, Zoisite is a guy. Also, he is notably in a homosexual relationship with fellow General Kunzite. As you might imagine, this sort of thing would not fly well with the America of the 90s, so Zoisite became female, and honestly, no one could tell the difference. It also really screwed me up while rewatching the series with the new dub because I was just so used to the original version. The dialogue in general, though, for the original was a bit more bubbly. Like, the adaptation staff just had a bit more fun with it. And just comparing some of the scenes side by side here can prove my point.
What are you saying? What do you mean, Tuxedo Mask? He's not even here!
Yes, I am.
It can't be. Tuxedo Mask? Give me a break. He's not even here, Zoisite.
Yes, I am.
No way.
I am Tuxedo Mask.
You are? He is Tuxedo Mask. I don't believe it.
Not that the new dub is bad. In fact, I think I enjoyed it much more than the original, which apparently is not a common opinion to have. There's a lot of nostalgia in the DiC dub, but the Viz dub seems to be quite a bit more faithful to the original Japanese track, which is something that I appreciate. I could talk on and on about this series, so more than likely it's going to be a show that I come back to in the future. It's just a series that means so much to me as a person and as an anime watcher. It's part of our history and my own. Sure, I have a major nostalgia boner for it, but no one can deny its popularity and the impact on the anime market, both in Japan and here in North America. It's an impact that I don't think I can fully cover in one video unless we want to be sitting here all day. Needless to say that Sailor Moon is a classic series that helped to define the magical girl genre in the 90s and, for many people, helped to introduce new segments of fans into the world of anime. For this reason, I proudly presented with a rating of Certified Frosty, a rating for only the best of the best and for those shows too important to ignore. Though in this case, it easily qualifies for both. At the time of this video, Sailor Moon has been licensed by Viz Media and is available for home video release from them. Unfortunately, as far as legal streaming goes, it's only currently available on Hulu, which is US only. You bastards. So the rest of us are out in the cold on that front. Hopefully that changes, though, in the future. As far as alternate anime recommendations, I'm actually going to give you a bit of an order. Under the assumption that you want to see how the magical girl genre has developed over the years, here's what I recommend you do. Start with Sailor Moon. You don't have to go through all of the seasons. If you stop just after the first or somewhere in R, that's fine, but watch that first. Then watch Cardcaptor Sakura. Follow that up with Princess Tutu, and then finally end off with Madoka Magica. It's quite possible that you may have already seen some, if not all of these before, but this is a good order for those who are new to the genre and want to see a bit of its history. Like, you can replace some of them with others, of course, but this is just my personal favorites, and with luck, some of them are hopefully to your liking. And with that, I leave you. We have traversed through 8 years, multiple platforms and formats, and now 200 full reviews. It's been a long journey, but with luck, we are nowhere near done. Well, I would always like to thank my patrons for their continued support, for allowing me to do what I do. I also just wanted to take a moment this time to thank all of you who have watched all of my videos these past 8 years. It has been an honor and an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to many more videos to come. Until then, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.